Where to now, Ace?
Home.
Home?
The TARDIS.
Yes, the TARDIS. There are worlds out there.
Welcome, everyone, to Sunday's interview with Sophie Aldred. Please welcome our interviewer, Eluides, Pagan.
Good afternoon, everybody. Hope you're all excited to be here. I definitely am, for so many different reasons. I wasn't sure if I wanted to introduce myself just a little bit more. I don't know. I'm an English teacher. I've been a fan of Doctor Who since 1976, and I'll tell you a little bit about Sophie in a moment once we bring her out here. So please welcome our guest of honor, Sophie Aldred.
Hi, everybody. Great to see you. Good. Oh, this has gone so quickly. I can't believe it's Sunday lunchtime already, afternoon already. Can you? It's really strange. Time flies when you're enjoying yourself, hey?
Absolutely. And it's just a great atmosphere, basically like family. I mean, nice and relaxed, so definitely love this, definitely.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
have to start with something very quickly. I've gotten to know Sophie over the years through conventions and everything, and had a quick little story that I shared with her the first time I really got to spend a weekend with her working at a convention in Indianapolis. This was 2014, although I'd met you a few times, and in fact, for the 50th anniversary in London as well. And they may have it here. I'm not sure you'll be able to see it. But back when I was in high school in the 80s, all my friends in their lockers, the guys would have the infamous Farrah Fawcett in red bathing suit in their lockers. Of course, I was the odd nerd at that time, and I did not have Farrah Fawcett. Instead, I had this lovely picture of a young woman with a rocket launcher. And so began my first Doctor Who crush. So friends would ask who this is, and I would have to explain a little bit about it. And what was funny was then in 2014, when we were in Indianapolis, and I got to spend the weekend with her, taking around the city a little bit and working at her side at autographs, I had to share that story and the fact that it happened to be my anniversary weekend. So my poor wife, who's way in the back even, was so sweet as a gift. She doesn't quite remember this, but she had said that my gift for that weekend for our anniversary was to be able to spend the weekend there with Sophie, knowing what it meant to me. Although she doesn't quite remember it, but Sophie at that moment, when she heard that, was like, well, our anniversary's coming up as well for her and her husband shortly, and what am I doing there when I should be with my wife? She took the phone away from me, called my wife, and started talking to her and chastising me at the table, and would not let it go for the whole weekend about, what a wonderful wife I have to do this for me. So definitely a funny memory.
Stacey, you're a keeper.
She absolutely is. So, I know with day 3, I don't know how many people here have already been to at least one, if not the other 2 interviews with Sophie. So I've been trying to make sure I get a feel for what not to cover over and over again. But as a quick question, how many people here have already been here for at least one panel with Sophie? Okay, so that gives me a good idea of some things to not quite cover.
Uh-oh, that sounds ominous.
So I think best way, let's start way back when you first started with Doctor Who and the series had ended, and you started going into some of the, I guess you could say, the alternative media with Big Finish, I guess. And with that, How much say did you get to have with being a part of Big Finish with your character of Ace?
None,
Really?
basically. Yeah. What's amazing about the character of Ace is that the writers always write so well for Ace. And they seem to kind of get Ace straight away. There's very, very little that I've ever had to say to writers or when we've been doing Big Finish. Sometimes somebody will have put, she screams, or something like that. No, 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 Ace doesn't scream. Or there'll be something that I just feel that she wouldn't quite put that way, and we change it a little bit. Very, very rarely. The writers really just, I think from the moment they saw Ace, they kind of got the character, and they've developed her as much as I have, you know. And I've never had cause for complaint. Great.
So when working with Big Finish, there is a story that has basically become legendary, the Green Room.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't know how many people know about that, but could you share a little bit about what makes it so fantastic?
Sure. Well, when we first started doing Big Finish, of course, it was, we were working on a very small budget, and we worked initially from somebody's basement, I think, but then we went to a studio called the Moat Studios in a place called Brixton in South London. And it was principally a music studio, very kind of run-down old place. And we'd have, you know, a few sandwiches brought in at lunchtime, and then we'd go over to the pub, I think, if Gary Russell would let us go to the pub for lunch. And then Toby, who ran the Moat Studios, it was his music studio, he bought a new place over the other side of London, West London. And after a couple of days of bringing in sandwiches, he said, I love cooking, as well as doing all the sound engineering or everything like that. He said, I really love cooking. Can I bring some lunches in for the actors? And so Gary and co said, yeah, of course, yeah, why don't you? Well, he does love cooking, and he's a very good cook. And he would just he'd finish his day in the studio and then go home. He also had 2 small children, and then create these incredible lunches for us all, which he would then bring in plastic pots the next day. And then at probably about 1:45 every recording day, Toby would say, oh, I'm just popping out. And immediately your stomach would start rumbling, you know, because you knew that he was just popping out to prepare everything in this tiny little room. It was really no more than a cupboard in the green room with, a microwave and a kettle and things, but he'd just lay everything out beautifully. And what I loved doing was whenever a new actor would come along, I'd say, have you done a Big Finish before? And they'd say, no, I haven't. And I'd say, this would be at the break, because you usually record for a couple of hours and then have a coffee break and have some donuts or something like that, and then another couple of hours recording, and then lunch break. And you'd see people start tucking into the donuts at the first break, and I'd always say, save plenty of room for lunch. And they said, oh, really? What, just sandwiches? I said, no, wait. And we would not say anything. And then Toby would go into this cupboard, and then the magic moment would come where he would open the door and say, right, help yourselves, everybody. And a new actor would kind of, go in and just go, their face, because there before them would be this fantastic buffet of just delicious foods, sort of, Chinese noodles, or the curry days were great with just beautifully cooked homemade stuff. And then I'm not a pudding person, but he would make this brilliant chocolate mousse or a trifle or something like that. So very quickly, Big Finish, although they don't pay big fees, became known for the legendary lunches. And so actors would queue up to be in the Big Finish audios for the lunch. Sadly, since the pandemic, Toby he shut the studio. He's not. We've not been there, and we go to another lovely studio that I love to work in called the Sound House as well. But they don't do Toby lunches, and I'm just wondering whether they're now a thing of the past, and whether we'll just have to remember them. Yeah.
Well, hopefully those will come back.
Yeah.
I know it almost feels like a tease because every so often, if you listen to the Big Finish audio recordings, and they're so fantastic, and then I just love the interviews at the end, and you'd always be hearing, oh, the lunches are amazing, but they never, ever stated what the meals were. So I've always been curious, it's got to be fantastic. What is it? This is too much of a big tease for all these years. That's all anyone would ever say. The lunches are fantastic, but never what it was.
Yes, well, there were, lovely. There would be a main kind of, a meat or a fish, which I'm vegan, so I don't have that. But really beautifully cooked chicken breasts but just in an interesting way. So with lemon sauce or something, and then there'd be beautifully cooked green beans and different salad dishes, probably about 4 or 5 different salads of various kind, like a sort of chopped beetroot, but just really deliciously cooked and in sauces. Sometimes you'd get some fish. The curries, as I say, were fantastic. You'd get the poppadoms, and then about 4 different varieties of curry with beautifully cooked saffron rice with cardamom maybe, and just delicious. Yeah.
Wow, that's great.
Have you had your lunch, everyone?
Sorry. So with that, and touching a little bit onto some future things, you had written at Childhood's End about Ace. Now, with having done that, has any bit of a writing bug hit you in maybe trying to write a story for Big Finish?
It's funny, isn't it? Writing is not my favorite thing, although I recently came across some old school books of mine, and I opened them up, and they were chock full of stories. And I remember I did want to be a writer at one stage, as well as being an actor. But so I've always written, and then I stopped writing stories, partly because I had, how you make a decision, like a teacher had written at the end of one of my stories, this is a bit childish. You should be writing more grown-up stories now. And I was writing for my brother, who's 3 years younger than me. So that's why I was writing these sort of... and I was so fed up and so sort of... I think I made the decision, right, I'm not going to write for you anymore then. And so I stopped. Isn't it funny how we do that, though? I don't know whether that resonates with anybody. So for me, it was great to start writing again a bit. And I did write, actually... I used to write some sketches and things when I was doing children's TV, Corners. I wrote some stuff for them, but not stories. So At Childhood's End was a really lovely kind of coming back into it, although it was very much, I have to say, a collaboration with Mike Tucker and Steve Cole. There's no way I could have done that full-length novel on my own. I think because that was a collaboration, the one that I'm in a funny way more proud of is the short story that I've written for the Origins book, which came out last year. Have you heard of anyone not heard of that? You've heard of that? It's lots of shaking heads. Oh, great. Okay, yeah. So Penguin got in touch again and said, would you be interested in writing a short story for a book that we're going to publish? It's the origin stories of some of the companions before they met the Doctor. And so Katie Manning wrote one about Jo Grant, and I wrote one about Ace. And my story's at the beginning and hers is at the end, so we bookend the book. And it's really lovely book, actually, because we also we did the audio book for it as well. So she did some of the stories, I did some, and then there's another actress who does the rest of them. But the story was great to write, and it was sort of there. I so much knew what young Ace was going to be like. You know, it almost sort of wrote itself in a way. But yeah, I hope you get that soon. It's called Origins, and it's a story called Chemistry. I couldn't think of a title for this story, and just one morning I was thinking this and that and then suddenly I woke up one morning and thought, oh yes, chemistry, because it's got a double meaning at least. So yeah, I hope you enjoy it when you read it, because I'm very, very proud of that, because it's every single word is mine and my idea. And it was funny because I'd never worked so closely with an editor before, and the editor kept coming back to me and saying, I think this is a bit of a long word for children to understand, because it's meant to be a sort of, I don't know what age group it's for, but I don't write for children. I don't like the idea of writing down, you know. It's the same with children's TV, children's theatre. I've done a lot of all of that. I just believe in treating children just like, you know, you would anyone else. Children are small people, you know, they're just smaller in height, but they deserve our respect. You know this as a teacher.
Yeah. As a high school teacher, that's one of the things I've noticed. And while I haven't really dealt too much with elementary teaching, a lot of my co-workers, talking with them, that's one of the biggest things, that the kids relate to that and they attach to it, and they recognize when they're kind of being talked down to. And you know how a lot of kids will even go, you know, they want to be treated like they're much older than they are. And sometimes when you can do that through things like that with vocabulary and so on, and just how to think, they react to that and they definitely respond very positively. So I can see how that works. Talking down doesn't always work too well.
I also think, you know, I love reading, I love books, and I think if you give a child a book with difficult words in, there's something beautiful about those words. There was a wonderful exhibition that my mum and my son and my niece and a friend of hers went to recently at this. For those of you who've visited London, I don't know whether you visited the Victoria and Albert Museum, but it's the most incredible museum. And there was a Beatrix Potter exhibition. Now, Beatrix Potter, Peter Rabbit, all those incredible books. And my mum was saying, you know, that she said, oh, the words are so, that there's lots of soporific, I remember, from Benjamin Bunny. I think, no, the Flopsy Bunnies, I think. They ate too much lettuce, and because lettuce is soporific. That's something I've always remembered, because if you don't know something, you ask, don't you? Or you kind of look it up, or you roll it around in your brain, and you think, oh, I wonder what that is. But I think to substitute a word just because it might be a bit difficult, no, you need the poetry, you need the joy of the language. I mean, things pop into my brain. Like Sylvester in, I think it's Remembrance of the Daleks, he says, too much, not enough food makes you obstreperous. You know, you think, yeah, obstreperous, what's that? Yeah, you know, that's a good word.
You got to go look and find out what it is, and then it just sticks in your head.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So I thoroughly enjoyed writing that short story. So yeah, search that out. I think you can get it on Audible. You should be able to.
Ooh, okay. Are there any chances for an Ace sequel?
Yeah, lots of people have been asking about that. I'm not sure. I mean, it depends, because Penguin, I think they probably want to have somebody else write something now. But I mean, certainly, I like the short story form, I have to say. So I'm thinking I might come up with some more of those. That would be fun.
Okay. And when you were writing at Childhood's End, did you have any advanced information about Jodie, the way she characterized and so on, to be able to kind of have that voice when you wrote it?
Yes, well, I had, and I'd done quite a lot of the. I've done lots of the adaptations, like I did the Witchfinders, and I had to do her voice, so that was quite good because I had plenty of reference really. I really enjoyed doing the voices for all the characters. Actually, it was great fun.
So with some of the media, then in going back a bit, you've been doing a lot of the Blu-ray collections, from the sofa, with various people watching a lot of the classic stories and just commenting on it. Now, from all of that, have you come across any classic stories pre-Sylvester era that really stuck with you, that you're like, oh, this right here, this is fantastic Doctor Who?
Well, the frustrating thing about doing those behind the sofas is that we're only shown clips. Obviously, because we're there for a day, only a day, and we have to get through a whole season. So we can't watch the whole episode because there wouldn't be time to do the whole season. It's been a bit frustrating sometimes watching just little bits. That's why in the season 2, I think it is, William Hartnell, we don't cover quite a few of the stories because there just simply wasn't time. And they can't afford us for more than a day at a time. So that's a shame in a way, but it has made me want to watch more Doctor Who, that's for sure. I can't remember having watched, well, certainly the William Hartnell was all completely new for me. And then even the Peter Davison, because I was away at university when Peter was the Doctor, and so I hadn't really seen any of his. I remember vaguely seeing Janet, but not really concentrating on it so much. So yes, it's been brilliant for me watching them, and I am tempted to watch the box sets, and yeah, it's great fun doing those behind the sofas. I particularly enjoyed the recent one I did with Bonnie for the William Hartnell one. You know when you cry, you cry with laughter.
Mm-hmm.
We were at that point. It was just funny. She just noticed that there was this. It was in. Is it called The Romans? The story.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, there was one. There was a soldier, and every time he talked, his helmet would move up and down like this, up and down his forehead. And Bonnie spotted it. She said, "Oh look!" And he kept coming back, and we started laughing. And you know how when you're giggling, when you know you sort of shouldn't in a way, and it gets worse and worse and worse. So we were sitting there with tears pouring down our faces. It was really fun.
Oh no, now we're going to have a new drinking game as you watch the episode. Every time you see that, you got to take a drink. We haven't gotten the second season box set yet. That just got released, I believe, in the UK, because I've been hearing some friends over there talking about how fantastic it is.
It's really good. You'll love it. Yeah.
So I think March, is the release date for here, March. So definitely looking forward to that. That has the chase on it, I believe, right? That one, I think, is one of the reasons why some people might want to get their hands even on the UK version of the Blu-rays. From my understanding, the UK Blu-rays actually will play in the US Blu-ray players, quite a lot of them, without having to worry about region free. And for us, the US version will have some trimming that I'm sure a lot of people may know because of the Beatles. So in the US, they because of the copyright rules and everything, they have to trim out the Beatles sequences in it.
Is that right?
So
Wow.
I just a little hint out there that while you can see those clips on YouTube that got trimmed, because I remember that was the thing when The Chase was released on DVD that had happened. So I was hoping maybe something would have been cleared for the Blu-rays. They're going, no, it's not. So if you really want that full clip, you may want to jump onto Amazon UK or a friend of yours that lives out there.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
So
yeah.
a little sad on that. Kind of like the new series, when they were doing the Doctor Who Confidentials, it was the same thing. One of the reasons we got the trimmed versions on our Blu-rays, where the confidentials were about as long and sometimes even longer than the actual story. Here, they were only about 20 minutes long because they had to trim. Yeah, music, things like that, they had to clip from it. So we don't have the full versions when you look at the US. But that, definitely looking forward to seeing some of that. Now, with those, who would you say is probably favorite companion that you have gotten to interact with over all the years?
Oh, golly, that's so difficult. I mean, that's, again, it's like saying who's your favorite Doctor, who's your favorite child. Well, obviously, I loved working with Bonnie because she was the first, and she really held my hand through those days because Bonnie, let's face it, I mean, she's so experienced and talented. She's just like a consummate professional as well. She's just, she's been acting on TV since she was tiny, and theatre even before that. So here was me stepping into a TV studio for the very first time. In fact, I even had to ask her where TV Centre was because I didn't know where the BBC Studios was. And she was just great. She guided me through. She kind of kept me. Yeah, it was, and still we are great friends to this day. It was lovely. So, but then of course Janet now, you know, the experience of working with her was wonderful. I'd known her from the conventions, and we'd always got on very well. But she was quite nervous. She'd be the first to say this because when she did The Power of the Doctor, it was the first time she'd done any acting on TV. She's done Big Finishes, but it's very different. It's the first time she'd done any TV acting since she gave up all those years ago. So it was brilliant to be able to work with her and have somebody to be with her. Gemma as well was great, of course, because, again, very experienced actress. The three of us were like a little gang. We were great, and we got to know each other very well. That was a joy. But I mean, to work with the other companions at conventions is just lovely. You've probably seen us all together. There's something that brings us together. Even like, you know, meeting Tommy this weekend. It's been really, really lovely to get to know him. And oh, by the way, there's a PS to our story of getting lost in the snow the other day. Tommy was showing somebody a picture of the moose prints in the snow and saying, you know, oh, we'd love to have seen a moose. And they said, that's not a moose. That's a bear. Oops. We wondered what had got at that. There was a bird, a very large bird that had been kind of ripped apart. We were thinking, I thought, gosh, that's quite something for a fox to do that. I don't think it was a fox.
So it was kind of good you weren't trying to track down the moose for a little bit just to see if you could find it.
We were thinking of it.
Oh. Okay, so moving forward a little bit, well, I know you've touched on the idea of meeting many people that to a lot of us would be amazing celebrities that we would fanboy, fangirl about seeing, and it's just amazing to hear all these people that you have met, especially the story when you had talked about when you first found out about your role, Topol.
Yes.
So
it's
to share for some
extraordinary
of the people here.
the number of people that you meet and that you work with. I was so fortunate on Doctor Who to work with such brilliant professionals, because that was my drama school, really, doing Doctor Who, because I never went to drama school. And so I watched those actors like a hawk. I watched Dinsdale Landon, who we saw yesterday. I watched Sheila Hancock, who was in Happiness Patrol. And Sylvia Sims, I mean, she was such a well-known actress. She actually taught me a good stunt, because there's one point where she has to grab my hair, or she had to do something to me. She said, I know, I'll pretend to grab your hair. And she said, so you know how to do this? And I said, no, I don't. She said, okay, to make it look really realistic, I'll just touch your head at the back. You do all the work. She said, so when you feel me touch your head like that, and I'll do all the facial acting and stuff, she said, I'll touch your head and you just yank it back like that and then do this. But she said, I won't be even hardly touching you at all. So, just little tips like that and tricks. And I was saying, I think yesterday or the day before, Eddie Peel telling me on my first day to look at him out of this upstage eye so that it would turn my face slightly towards the camera. Just little things like that. I learned so much from these great actors.
Well, that's amazing. So when things started ramping up for the 50th anniversary now, I remember being out there at the 50th anniversary convention and watching Day of the Doctor airing in the auditorium area that we had at the convention center with like thousands of fans, and it was just amazing. And then there was the after party. So I believe you'd said something about an encounter between your son and Stephen Moffat at that time.
Well, first of all, before that, us companions were kind of corralled into... I wish we'd have been in the auditorium with all the fans. That would have been really nice.
I was kind of surprised they didn't do that.
Yeah, that would have been really great. But we were put in a little viewing room, a big screen, and it was rather nice. We had all those companions just sitting there watching together. And I made sure that I sat myself next to Peter Purvis, actually, because I'd always admired Peter from a program he did called Blue Peter, which is where my Blue Peter badges come from on my jacket. So yeah, I was sitting next to him during the viewing, which was rather nice. But I'd taken Vince and the boys had come with me, and we'd been to this sort of drinks and nibbles after they did the after party stuff. And then we were going home in the taxi, and somebody was with us, I can't remember who, and they said something like, gosh, it's really about time they brought Ace back, isn't it? And Adam, 11 or 12, piped up and said, oh, that's what I told Stephen Moffat. And I said, what? And he said, yeah. He said, I said to Stephen Moffat, isn't it about time you brought my mum back? I was like, oh no. He'll think that I've put him up to it. But yeah, it was very funny.
Oh, definitely very relatable. I don't know how
I think it's so funny that he'd just done that off his own back. Yeah. He just thought, oh, that'd be nice to see my mum back in it. Gone and asked the executive producer. Yeah, why not?
I can imagine how many moments some of us with kids have gone through that one. Yeah. Kids going behind your back, saying something, then you find out, oh my God, you didn't. Please tell me you didn't. Yeah, what's wrong with that? Yeah. So then when you do get the call and you have to kind of keep it a secret, how did the boys react, especially Adam, with that?
Well, Vince knew, my agent knew, a friend of mine knew, but I didn't tell the boys. And Adam was at university last year, so he was away quite a lot. William was at school. He went to a performing arts school, and he was out from 7 in the morning until they didn't finish school till 6, and then he was kind of getting on with his own stuff. So he didn't really kind of, there was no reason to tell them. And then when I went off starting filming and stuff, again, Adam didn't really know. William was used to me just going off to places. But then they did start to kind of, oh, there's something she's doing. Okay, what is it? And then Adam said to me one day, so, you're going to Cardiff a lot, Mum? What do they film in Cardiff, I wonder? I said, I couldn't possibly say. Actually, I did say to him, do you want me to tell you? He said, no, don't tell me. And then one day, William rang me, and he said, Mum, why is your ace jacket missing from the cupboard?
Oh.
I said, oh, somebody's borrowed it, which was true. So they didn't know for sure. I mean, they did know. You know when children patronize you? I don't know whether... You know, they call me... it's very sweet. They call me Little Mama sometimes. My Adam is 6'2", and he sort of bends down, pats me on the head. Oh, poor Mama, he goes. Oh. I love it. It's great. And so they knew really, and they were very proud. But they didn't kind of want to know. I thought that was really nice.
Just seeing that, you know, that's because of me. I started that, Mom. Yeah. Started with Moffat. I worked my way up to get you that. So just remember, I started this. So, so now the trailer appears at the end, and the reaction to that. Yes. How was that suddenly? Not just because I could just imagine the phone, internet, all of that, any of your social media, getting those calls, but then once you were traveling out anywhere, did it suddenly explode in that way too, of recognition out on the street more?
Not so much, I don't think. I mean, I still do get recognized by people, which is fun. In fact, I was walking back from a job to the station through central London, and I heard this sort of somebody passed me in the street, and then I heard these footsteps behind me again, and I turned around and I saw this guy running back towards me. I thought, oh, I dropped something. You know, he's obviously picked it up, and he stopped and he said, "You're Sophie Aldred, aren't you?" And he was quite young. He was probably in his 30s. And I said, yes, I am. And he said, "You're Ace, aren't you?" And I said, "Yes, I am." He said, oh, it's my birthday today. This was during lockdown. He said, or, you know, sort of limited contact with people. "It's my birthday today, and nobody's coming to my party, and I'm just so thrilled to see you." And I said, "Happy birthday, I'm your present." But what shocked me most about the trailer last year was that the very next morning on the BBC News website, the news went, number 1, war in Ukraine, number 2, Partygate, which you probably heard of here with the Boris Johnson and his stupid parties, and number 3, Janet Fielding and Sophie Aldred back in Doctor Who. I mean, I think that's when it really hit me. I just thought, oh my goodness, this obviously really is big news.
So, I've become friends with Mickey Lewis, and he's basically like the new version of Barnaby Edwards, it seems. Him and another actor, John Davey, who are like the monster actors. That'll be the Daleks, the Cybermen, and all that. And he had shared a little story with me that seems to be the same moment you had shared at some point about when you got out there on set for Power of the Doctor, and you have all the Cybermen right there. Could you share that with everyone?
Oh, that's amazing. I mean, the day that we shot the scene with the Cybermen, shooting at them, because we had Patrick in the makeup, and I find him brilliant. I think he plays the character so fantastically. Poor guy, he couldn't sit down in the Cyberman costume. He couldn't get out of it either because it's so complex. So for rest periods, he had to lean on a board, which was standing up, tilted at the side of the studio. And he was obviously just like having to just focus and concentrate. He was astonishing. But then walking onto the set, and then the Cybermen in formation, you know, they're boom, 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 boom. It was really incredible, yeah. It was wonderful.
I know he was talking about how much he was getting so excited. He's like, "I can't believe it. We're we're on set. It's Sophie. It's Ace. We're on stage with Ace. So it's just really cool to even hear that from somebody that works on the show and just going how excited they were. So there's got to be some gratification knowing after all these years, even the people that work on the show, how excited they are to see your return. And
It
Janet
was
and
wonderful, yeah. It was great. There were lots of people on the crew who kept coming up, quite young people as well, who kept coming up and saying, "Oh, I love Ace. I think Ace is such a great character." The funniest thing for me was when I had to do the panel in the floor for the Ace jacket and all the stuff. And I love the idea that Ace knows her way around unit so much that she's stashed things in the floor all over unit headquarters. And, you know, she's probably got, like, snacks under one panel, and she's got guns under another, obviously. Bit of Nitro 9 here. And then her jacket and the parachute she just happens to have under there. I love that idea. Those panels were really heavy, and we had to rehearse that again and again, that shot. So I was kind of taking and the jacket got it was much more important than me. They said, right, bring in the hero jacket. They were going, the hero jacket. And it was all new to me, that thing about the hero shot and the hero jacket. So anyway, I had to bring the jacket out. They said, "Oh, you need to bring it out quite slowly. We're going to have a big close-up on with the Ace pointing this way." So it was all choreographed really, really amazingly. It was great. And then putting it on, and then of course, typical, just like the old days, I had to put the jacket on, then have the parachute on, and then the bag, and then the baseball bat. So it was, again, a complicated little sequence. That took quite some time to do. And then throwing Janet the parachute and her having to catch it. And, yeah, it was great.
So while you were doing the filming of this, is there any moment that you could sit there and go, wow, this, like, the best moment, the most excitement for you?
There were so many. I mean, of course, one was the moment where I was set up to beat up the Dalek with a baseball bat. Everyone was really excited about that. And, of course, now they have remote control domes, so the headpiece would go around like that, although typically it didn't work very well. And I said to the director, Jamie, can I choreograph this bit? Because I want to do it just the same as I did before. And he was really excited by that idea. I think that's the only problem that I have with is that I don't think the shot was quite wide enough. I'd have loved to have imitated the same shot that we had all those years ago, to have had me, so that you could really see me giving it a good old whacking in exactly the same way I did before. But that was really exciting because everybody else was so excited setting up for that shot. And then the other one I was really excited for was actually whizzing into the TARDIS on the parachute. And Jamie hadn't quite decided how to do it. He didn't know whether he'd be able to do it or not. And one morning he came to me and he said, I've had an idea. And I thought, oh, good, because I knew by then that he was really keen on me doing as much of the stuff as possible. And he said, I've been thinking about how we could do this, and last night I think I came up with it. And he drew me a little sort of stick figures on a piece of paper, and he said, if we get you lying on a plank, and you're on a dolly, which is one of those things that they push the cameras along. We'll put this plank on, and you're lying there, and you've got the parachute behind you like this, and then we can just push you into the TARDIS doors like this, and then you can jump off at the end and do the. I said, yeah, it sounds great. And then later on that day, we're all set up to do the shot, and we're sort of outside the TARDIS set, and the doors are there in front. And I'm lying on this plank. The rest of the crew just think I'm completely bonkers. Jamie and I are really excited, and he's going, now, do you think you can just... I'm going, yeah, okay, we'll do that. And the cameraman Mark was brilliant, and he's behind me going, are you sure? And then Jamie's going, put your legs up a bit further. And I think, gosh, lucky I'm quite fit, because I've got good core muscles, because I had to actually lift them up like this for quite a time and wave my legs around. And so, and they had a pretend parachute. They just had ropes coming from the bag. Okay. And so they had people behind stretching the ropes out so that they were taut. And they had to sort of run along with the dolly as I was being pushed in. It was quite something. And then they whizzed me in like this. And then the difficult bit was I had to come from horizontal to vertical and jump off the end in exactly the right spot, as though I'd just jumped down from a parachute. And then I had to unclip the parachute whilst saying my lines. And, it was, again, another kind of quite complex bit of choreographing. But I thought it worked really well. And I loved Ace's lines there, that she's sort of like being a bit fed up that Mandip's allowed to fly the TARDIS. And, she let you fly the TARDIS. And, it's great. And then, of course, she's sort of shaking Vinder's hand and kind of completely discombobulating everybody there. It's great. And then the other bit that I loved was when I took the baseball bat out of the pack in rehearsals, it just made the best noise. So I did it for the first time, and it went shing like that.
Like Excalibur.
So, yeah, it was great. So this wonderful shing noise. It was great. But of course I had to have it so that I could actually get it without fumbling around. So it was quite sort of complex little scene, that. But I loved it. It was really great.
And it's crazy how the bat has become so iconic, and it only appeared Remembrance of the Daleks.
Yeah.
But,
it's extraordinary, isn't it?
You see that bat, Ace.
Yeah.
It just screams Ace.
Yeah, exactly. There was another lovely moment, actually, which is when... I've forgotten his name, the actor who plays Vinder. What's his name? He's very well known in the UK because he's a singer as well. And he's great, lovely guy. And he was kind of quite very cool. And I thought, oh my God, this guy is so cool. I sort of was a bit slightly in awe of him in a way. And then he came up to me, we had a little break, and he came up and he said, Sophie, I've got something to tell you. And I said, what? He said, I have to say thank you because you are my hero. And he said, I think he was going through quite a tricky time in his childhood, and he said he had the Happiness Patrol on a loop over and over and over again. And he said he just absolutely loved Ace. And he was talking to other people, and he said, I can't believe I'm meeting Sophie Aldred. I can't believe... It was so sweet. And he'd been a bit cool because he'd been a bit nervous about coming to talk to me. It was so sweet.
Now, with that, as you said, when you're getting into the TARDIS and everything, what was your reaction to be on the TARDIS set again for the first time after all those years? Well,
that was a very special moment, and it was lovely because everybody realised it was going to be a special moment. So before everybody went piling into the TARDIS, I can't remember who it was, whether it was the floor manager or whether it was Jamie, the director, but he said, would you and Janet like to go in the TARDIS? And everybody sort of hung back, and they let Janet and me walk into the TARDIS for the first time together. And we just walked in and just looked round, it was just such an amazing moment. Because, of course, our TARDIS, my TARDIS, Janet had a bit more, but our TARDIS was like 1, 2, 3 flats like that, and the console in the middle, and a bit of floor. And that was it. This is like a 360-degree experience, and they can even shut the doors, and it's just, you're in the TARDIS. It's just incredible, and all the different levels and the steps and the console, massive console in the middle with things that actually work.
I know it's amazing in the sense I got to experience it back during the 50th anniversary. My son and I got to do the tour that took you right onto the set, and when you walked on there, this was, still Matt Smith's TARDIS at the moment for the 50th anniversary, and just walking in, you really felt like you were truly in there. So I could only just imagine what it's like to go from the 3-wall version of a studio to walking into something that you're completely immersed in it.
Yeah, it was extraordinary. Oh, there was a funny bit, though, because the scene where Jodie's putting us all in our places, and then and we all decided which bits to hold on to and stuff like that. And I think I said to Bradley, I said, you can't touch that because that bit makes it fly. And he said to me, it doesn't actually work, It's not real. And he's like, oh yeah.
When you had stated how the character Vase going through there and how she would stash things, I'm not sure how many people caught kind of the reaction. It seemed like it was, she's saying she's doing that, and even the character of Kate Stewart was like, what? Like, wait a minute, so you stashed some extra stuff here throughout the base, showing that Ace has been there at some point, which could be a hint to hopefully a future thing, especially since I know some pictures came out recently of a new wall mural that was put up at Bad Wolf Studios that has a picture of Ncuti's doctor, and it says, Hooniverse. So it feels like some of those little hints, rumors of possibilities that we may see with RTD back, maybe some return of some spin-off shows.
I
wouldn't
so
that be great?
hope so. Yeah, it would be great. I would absolutely love that. And I think that, because I'm hoping there was a bit of a clue in that what Kate Stewart says in the final scene, I may be needing to recruit you for some work or something. So I'm really hoping that he does, because it worked for him so well before with Sarah Jane and Torchwood, that wouldn't it be great if we could do that? It'd be really, I'd love that.
I mean, could easily see that. I mean, just like you said, how there were seeds, it feels like, that were dropped, and could just easily see some kind of an amalgamation of a unit Charitable Earth series where you could bring in some of the previous companions to work together. I mean, there's already been the hint that Joe Grant has done some things, of course, and I'm just blanking out now. Who else had said? Oh, well, Janet also has shown that she's apparently done some work with UNIT. So could easily see how we could have this kind of UNIT series, Ace series, former companions series, that would be just amazing to see. And I know I see as we're winding down on time, have to ask, so after having become a member basically of the Who family, what would you say is probably, from all these years, you could say has been your proudest moment?
Oh my goodness. I think there's probably lots of them, and they're all to do with you. I think it's when people come to me and say how much Ace has made a difference to them. That's really, that gives me such a thrill that something that I've done has actually made a difference to another human being. Because I think at bottom, that's what we all want to do, don't we? We want to look after each other, and most of us, the vast majority of people, want to give, want to be generous and kind. Anyway, that's the kind of world I create for myself, and that's what I want for other people as well. So I think to be able to, the privilege of coming and being able to talk to people and being able to make a difference to people, I think that's the biggest thrill of all.
That's great. And I think that pretty much also, in a sense, sums up the whole thing about Doctor Who. I'd like to believe with kind of that mantra or feeling of just going out there and helping others, making them much better people, especially the lines when Janet gets to meet with Peter again is the fifth Doctor, and that emotion there, and then you especially with Sylvester, the same thing of I just got the chills when he was sitting there about letting the children grow.
Yes, let
and
them
preparing
fly.
them for that.
Yeah, that's right. It's amazing. It speaks to everybody, doesn't it?
Yes.
And then I suppose the other thing I'm most proud of is having not once, but twice beaten up a Dalek with a baseball bat.
Yes. Well, so much more. I know we could go on and on about, but sadly we're right at the end now. So I would just like to ask everyone once again, please give it for Ms. Sophie Aldred.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Mwah. And thank